So, hello. Hello, Gregor. What are we doing?
So, Kenny.
Hi.
So, dudes.
Oh, yeah. Hello, everybody. Yeah. Do we need to. Oh, we need to have like a combo thing. We could do like hello, dudes.
Hello, dudes.
No, everybody.
What's your thing? Because everybody knows my dudes.
Yeah, I do hello, everybody.
Hello, Oh, okay.
So we can do everybody.
Everybody.
So
I like it.
We'll work on it. We'll figure. We'll figure something out.
We'll run that by the strategy team.
Yeah.
Which is just us two.
Yeah. Hey, I mean, Kobe made this graphic thing.
Oh yeah, I mean that's clean.
We have an artist.
We literally how long did it take for us to even come up with the name? I think like a week.
I think we've planned this whole thing in a week.
Relatively short, yeah. And then we you gave it to Kubi, and then he came up with this
Yeah, we spoke on the 22nd of June. So yeah, a week. We've thrown this thing together. So yeah, shout outs to Kobe. He's good at what he does. Yeah. Well, yeah. Well, why are we doing this?
Well, I think based off a conversation that we had not too long ago, I think we noticed a lack of a siege pod, just kind of in general, that was running on an active sort of basis, or at least one of many, because you had lots of different attempts at this sort of thing back and forth among content creators, and then for whatever reason, it wasn't maintained over the course of a pretty lengthy amount of time. That's neither here nor there. I think primarily what we noticed was a lack of a siege talk kind of show that sort of bridged the gap between a more casual, gamer minded focus on things that were going on and a more professional esports kind of focus. And I think you and I kind of recognize that siege is ultimately the sum of its parts, and that one aspect of the community doesn't necessarily define the entire thing. So this is kind of a show. This is I would guess, our best attempt at trying to make an all-encompassing sort of siege talk show that addresses multiple points, not just necessarily siege roster changes, but not necessarily, okay, what do we think of balance change in game? We love this game. We want to see it grow. We want to see it improve, and we want to give back, and we want to give the community an outlet to talk about this game that we all love.
Yeah, and I think it also boils down to I personally, I mean, I reached out to you about this whole thing. So for me, it's also just personally I think you and we both just kind of love to talk about Siege, sometimes too much. So for us, it's just it's nice to sort of have this outlet and have an actual conversation about things, because a lot of the Siege discourse nowadays in the community boils down to just reactions, split-second decisions that people just make the moment they hear something. There's a very lack of an actual talk.
Just gaming in general, I feel.
True, for sure. And, with the fact that, we don't have stuff like the Hot Bridge podcast, the whatever the one, Logic Bomb podcast. Yeah. So, and yeah, I miss having those, watching those, being on those. So the natural course for me was just, let's start on my own with you.
Every big FPS, community has something like this, and I think it was high time that it happened. So yeah, I mean, I'm here for it. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that's our introduction. I'm Keeney. That's Gregor. We're here to talk Siege and have a good time. So we have our fancy little transition. So let's go into the first topic that we've sort of pre-planned a couple of topics. We might ramble. If we'll ramble, yeah,
as you would do on a show like this.
As we do. But we have sort of condensed it into a couple of topics. We might stray a bit from them, but that's fine. That's just more Siege. So our first little topic we want to talk about is the sort of state of Siege right now. I guess we highlighted 4 different topics for this video. So we're gonna talk the state of the game, then we're gonna talk about the Frost rework, then we're gonna talk about Rank 2.0, and then Rengoku 2.0 and events. But we will be starting with state of the game. So yeah, Gregor, what's your take?
Game sucks. Play something else. No.
Okay, we're done with the pod. It's already dead.
That, I'm noticing less what's happening a lot with the way that people talk about Siege. I'm noticing less specifically to Siege, the way people talk this game. More so what I'm noticing with like just live service games in general. I feel like the more time that I spend in this game, the more game being content creation, the more time that I spend in this business, the more I kind of start to like see patterns and sort of recognize, okay, there is a demand for negativity in a certain kind of like contextual marketing sense. And I don't that's just a hunch. I don't have anything to like prove it or back it up, but I do know, this is something I talked about in a video that I released not too recently in relation to X Defiant. I feel like a lot of creators, especially Siege creators, I think could have an opportunity to just cash out on just really negative and just kind of vitriolic opinions about X Defiant. And not necessarily because I think the game is bad, because I like the game myself. I think it's just kind of popular to sort of make like a us versus them kind of dynamic when you're talking about like the consumers and the big evil like corporate entity, because that's just kind of the state of the global economy right now. Not a lot of people are doing particularly great, and so I think people try to find like outlets when they go into a video game kind of outlet. They don't want to treat it like a job. They don't want to treat it like work. So when they, this is where I think a lot of the anti esports sentiment seems to come from. And I don't think it's necessarily, like I kind of outlined an example of why it's there. But I also believe that the dev team is more so on the consumer's side in a lot of aspects than people are willing to admit. Yeah. And maybe I'm just saying that because I'm a content creator, but based off of my firsthand experience, I think the devs want to make a good game. I think the devs want the player base to be happy. Even, just from like a, kumbaya, like everybody get along kind of perspective. From a practical point of view, you want your player base to be satisfied, because if they don't play the game, you don't make any money. So like it's a weird kind of limbo that I think Siege is in right now, where they were kind of surfing the esports wave for a little while. And now esports, we're starting to realize that there are some flaws with the business model. And now some people treat that as like validation for the opinions they had about esports originally. I just think the market is consolidating. I think that Siege is a very complex game, and it's going to enjoy relative popularity with its complex nature, but it's not going to be CSGO, because CSGO is basically like a competitive sport. We wouldn't have tac shooter FPS fundamentals 5v5 plant the bomb to win without Counter-Strike.
I think it's also I think it's also important when you're comparing Siege to Counter-Strike, it's not really a fair comparison either, because you're looking at a game that has been here since forever, right? I'm pretty sure Counter-Strike is probably older than us. Like the first mod is probably older than we are.
And the framework for that mod predates. Yeah. I mean, you're talking like you're talking about how like the genesis of personal computing, even like making it. I mean, that was like Source. Yeah. Like there were like FPS games like pre and after Source Engine.
Yeah. So that's
like a huge
Yeah, it's not just that either. Like, not only does Counter-Strike have, pretty much the entire gaming community grown up around it, but it's also a free-to-play game, which makes the comparison even less fair. You're comparing a younger game that people have to pay to play, and that little hurdle, even if it's like a small fee, which you can get Siege fairly cheap, it's still a hurdle. That's what keeps out a lot of young people that might not, you know, be able to just buy games willy-nilly. You know, they have to go to their parents like, "Hey, mom, can I have this game?" That's not the case with games like Counter-Strike or Fortnite. They can but it does.
It does.
It also comes down to
my personal experience in you know, in a ranked game.
Yeah, and it comes down to like you're going to school, right? And you're talking with your friends, and they're like, "Oh, hey, check out this cool game and come play with us." Oh, playing? it's $20. I might get it. If it's free, there's no question about it. You're gonna download it. You're gonna check it out. You're gonna play it with your friends. That little hurdle, it really like
word of mouth is so important.
It's super important, and when a game is free, that's pretty much your entire promotion your entire strategy. But I think we're kind of focusing more on sort of like the word of mouth stuff. Yeah. In terms of like the actual game of Siege, I am personally like really enjoying it right now. I'm obviously seeing people sort of talking about the TDM meta, but I feel like that's such a mental block, because I agree. I just play like the stuff that counters that, and they are the ones rage quitting, not me. And especially with the addition of Fenrir, that is literally designed to just completely block someone that's just trying to face check without droning, and we've seen those people complain and still have a drone in their pocket. It's like, obviously he's strong, don't get me wrong, but he's a very good addition to the game and counters that sort of playstyle that a lot of people seem to be complaining about.
I'm just gonna say this from my personal experience. I think a lot of like word of mouth talking points, in the same vein that you were talking about when it comes to like marketing a game, I think a lot of that has overlap when it comes to just like talking about game balancing. I think everybody, you know, wants to have an opinion, and that's a natural like human thing. And they hear people, you know, they hear a content creator say TDM meta.
Yes.
TDM meta. They hear a pro player say TDM meta, and then they just say TDM. And they don't necessarily, you know, say that with an example in their head or based off of some kind of like experience that they had. I could say from my personal experience, and this is, you know, anecdotal.
Yeah.
I believe that like the TDM meta like label has elements of truth to it. And I also think it's used by people as a cope.
Yeah, 100%. I think I've had that personal experience with a couple of people in my community without really naming anyone. But I've sort of had that, like, I know that they might be watching another content creator that I know for a fact sort of uses this TDM meta argument a lot, and they've sort of come into my stream and there's like Gregor. They're playing with me, and it's not you, what the hell. And then they just like it's always like brought up, they're just rushing in. Yeah, but like we have a Melusi there, why aren't you playing off of it?
Yeah.
And it's I've also had that sort of, again, anecdotal experience with people sort of they're playing with another stack, and they're playing their way, and then they come and join in my stack, and I play a very different kind of Siege where we focus more on actually strategizing. And they've said that the game is so much more enjoyable when you play it right, and I'm like, that's what I've been saying all along. Also, I did notice, and I wanted to point it out before I forget, I realized how like our podcast is named Prep Phase Podcast, and all the gadgets are like Defender gadgets. Like we have Defender bias here. Just wanted to point that out. But yeah. I don't know. I personally think that the whole TDM meta, like, yes, there might be some truth to it. A lot of people are abusing it, but I do personally think like it is a cope. And like you have the tools to deal with it if you just bother using them.
The issue is that TDM meta rears its head in situations where the attackers use their utility, drones, intel gathering devices, to make a read and then go for an aggressive play.
Yeah.
And so if you have a weakness in your defense, it's going to feel like you're playing TDM meta because everything that you just did is going to fall apart because you had a hole that could be exploited. And I understand that those holes can be difficult to find now.
Yeah.
As opposed to like Utility Simulator circa 2020, because back in Utility Simulator circa 2020, we had bulletproof Melusi, we had bulletproof Goyo shield, we had Smoke obviously had his deployable shield. That was a more recent
Jaeger had 6 ADS charges.
Jaeger had, and then you could combo that up with Jaeger basically
Oh,
set up impossible.
You cut out a little bit there.
Oh, I was gonna
like
say
the sensitivity on your mic might be off a bit.
Oh, weird.
Yeah.
I was just saying you had Jaeger and Wamai, you guys up, combo those guys up, and then that would add even more, right? Utility burn. The Gon 6 didn't get added until what, like halfway through that whole cycle. So you basically just had like frag grenades.
I just noticed, is your mic auto muting when you say the F word?
No.
Because every time you say the F word, it auto mutes.
What did I didn't say, did I say any word eaters?
It sounded like you said the F word and then it just muted.
F word.
Oh.
I don't.
Well, yeah, continue. Sorry.
Hold on. Yeah, sorry. No, maybe it's my Discord. Oh, it's automatically on determine input. Here, maybe that'll fix it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think that, you didn't really have options to deal with that for attackers until relatively recently. And so we've seen like a scaling down of a lot of that sort of like back and forth of utility soak and utility destruction. It's still there. It's just isolated in certain kinds of pockets based off of map geometry, right? Yeah. Staircases
and we've seen
corridors. Yeah.
And we've seen a proper TDM meta with the LMG meta, and that was not fun.
Awful.
That was
terrible.
Awful. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it's just, I don't know. I feel like Siege is in like a really good state meta-wise, I think, when it comes to like, there's so many like tools at your disposal to deal with things that you don't like. Right? Mm-hmm. We're on the same page there, right?
Yeah, I think that the other thing that makes it a hurdle, I think it feels like a hurdle for people, is that people with particularly talented gun skill can leverage situations that are unfavorable more often than not.
Yeah.
There are going to be situations where, you have the way that I always like to kind of put it is that you can have the best strategy in the world. If you can't win your ones, then you can't really enact the strategy. That's just kind of how the nature of the beast works. However, there are ways to make the ones more advantageous to you, and you can win those ones before they even start based off of a timing, based off of a read, based off of, okay, I have somebody, and just basic tac shooter fundamentals, right? It's the classic example of like, okay, 4v1, we're totally gonna win, and then you give the guy a bunch of 1v1s because you're trolling, and it's like, oh, I'm gonna run out, LOL.
Yeah.
Well, on the flip side, when you're attacking, there are ways to leverage a 2v5 situation if you just take stock of the resources that you have at the time. Okay, I have 2 lion calls. Okay, do we have a drone on this cutoff here or looking towards like open area, right? Do we see somebody coming from beepers? Oh, there's somebody in small office here. Swing this real quick before the staff guy notices that I'm there. Get that pick and then come back. Throw a drone over here. Then do the lion scan when my teammate wants to come in and plant. Those are all things that you have to make decisions about in the middle of a round very quickly.
Yeah.
That's not something that comes naturally to people who have been playing the game for like a day because they just haven't been exposed to that many patterns yet. They're still trying to figure out, what direction to lean, right? So, like there's so many things. There's so many little micro decisions that happen over the course of a siege round, and the moment that you make one, it can be the end of a round, and that's what I think makes that's what makes it frustrating for people.
Yeah, I kind of it basically exactly what you said like a minute ago. I almost went on a random tangent the other day, sort of like talking about like what Siege truly is. And then it sort of boiled down to like, I almost got this like motivational speech, funk music in the background type of beat going on, where it's like Siege is all about making it as unfair as possible. Making a 1v1 as unfair for the enemy as possible, whether it's coming down to abusing perspectives as a defender by using feet holes and then looking over them from hiding so they can't see you, but you can see them, or through the means of using gadgets like Fenrirs or Ellas or Yings and whatnot, whatever it may be. It's all about making it as unfair as possible, and it's going to feel ass when you die to it, but at the same time, the attackers are going to have a lot of those tools to mitigate that and make that gunfight fair again. And that's also one of the reasons why attackers tend to have more high power guns, because if they can make that gunfight more fair, they have the advantage again because they have better guns. A lot of people don't kind of miss that.
It is the ultimate team-based FPS.
Yeah.
I can boot up like CS or Val or COD, and in a lot of situations, if I can aim like dummy crazy and I just win like tons of 1v1 engagements and I get a lot of econ going and I can buy weapons for my teammates and myself, I can leverage that. In Siege, it's not the case. You know, that's an argument that I've made a couple of times where I'm like, I wonder. I even thought about having an econ system for Siege and whether something like that would work or not, because there are a lot of frustrating situations where it's like, okay, you're in a 1v4 and then you manage to get 2 picks, but it's not the like isolated 1v1 that you get because somebody refragged you because the enemy played smart. Maybe there could be a punishment for like giving up bodies. At the end of the day, like losing a 1v4 is the same thing as losing a 1v1. That's where like the whole like tactical pause thing comes from. Sometimes you'll see it in professional play where it's like, okay, we have a 0% chance of winning this round. I'm on the roof. Everybody else inside is dead. Okay. And then they'll like sit on the roof and then they'll like kind of, blah, blah, blah about what went wrong and what to do next time.
Yeah.
Right. That's not something that happens in CS because you can at least get like an exit frag or two. And so I think that ultimately that is like the big difference between a game like CS and a game like Siege, is that it is so heavily reliant on what your teammates are doing and what the individual teammates on the enemy side are doing, because how they interact with what you have interfaced, how especially for defense, how the attackers are trying to solve your puzzle that you have set up is ultimately determines the course of the round. And sometimes there are a lot of cases where, like, look, I mean, if we see an opening and you can just get map control really quickly because there's something that they're not paying attention to, the strategically sound decision that you're going to do there as a strategist, the smart thing you're going to do is take the gunfight.
Yeah.
And so like winning a gunfight doesn't mean that was a brain dead decision. It just meant that you won a gunfight.
Yeah.
Because you had to win that gunfight.
Yeah.
And that's, that people get confused there a lot, I think.
Yeah. For me, it also boils down to like, I think that's one of the things that causes a lot of frustration for people with Siege, is the fact that you can't not, most games you can't carry, right? You are at the end of the day part of the team, and if you're constantly being put in 1v5s and the enemy plays it smart, it doesn't matter who you are, you're not winning that. If they are playing it smart,
I would not recommend this game to anybody without friends.
Yeah. That's which is one of the arguments why Siege should maybe go free to play one of the days, but that's a topic for another podcast. But yeah, like, because we see that happen a lot of the times in even in competitive play. We've seen some legendary 1v5s, and by all means, I'm not taking away any credit for the people that get those 1v5s. It is
not at all
mad impressive to win 5 1v1s against some of the best people in the world. But at the same time,
skill to capitalize on mistakes.
It does. But at the same time, you also definitely want to talk about how in hell the 5 people could just allow that to happen.
Of course. Of course.
Which, it's definitely an argument.
And that's something that a good coach would talk about after the fact. But it doesn't. It like two things can be true at the same time, right?
Yeah,
like
for sure.
It happens in sports all across the world. Like in American football, like somebody can blow a tackle, and then a guy can run for 80 yards and make this crazy play because he's a very athletically gifted dude, and he just the guy makes a misstep. Here like it would have tackled one dude, but it didn't tackle this guy, and then that's all you need for him to make a huge play.
Yeah, I think another
two things can happen at the same time.
Yeah. I think another issue for me that comes down with the way that a lot of Siege players argument is like let's say you have that man advantage, you're playing a 4v3, and one of your teammates decides to swing. Generally speaking, that's most likely 9 out of 10 times it's probably a bad play to swing when you have the man advantage instead of playing off with your teammates, and people tend to have a lot of confirmation bias in these kinds of situations. Like if you win that 4v3 and you make it a 4v2, that's really good, but it doesn't necessarily change the fact that swinging in that was unnecessary and potentially just puts the whole team at risk.
Yeah, you see that stereotype of like an esports bro all the time that has who's very mechanically gifted and can win most of their ones, But the problem is that they put themselves in situations where they don't have to take that one.
Yes.
And so as soon as you get to that point, you know, I guess maybe about like I would say, I guess the point at which they're finally like considering trying to do like competitive play in a game, they'll have to learn like team fundamentals. I mean, like really stuff that, you know, I think I tried to, you know, get ahead of playing competitively, but there are a lot of people that just the concept of like, don't comm flood, you know, don't take an engagement that you don't need to. Ask for help before you make a play.
Leverage man advantage.
Yeah. Communicate what you are doing, right?
Oh,
while you are doing it, even if it doesn't seem like it might seem obvious to somebody, right? But like, just people think that you know, if you get tunnel visioned, it's like, oh, this is like this, you know, this player is bad because they tunnel visioned on this like one particular like instance. Pro players tunnel vision all the time.
Yeah, they feel
right?
themselves.
It's human psychology, right? It's not just like, you know, it's the Monday morning quarterback effect, right? It's what we call it, you know, with American football, right? Like you see somebody you see a quarterback just make what seems like a really boneheaded play, and you're like, why'd you do that?
Yeah,
tunnel vision.
I mean, it's always
right?
easy when we see everything top down. We got that overlord POV, and you know, it might seem like a really questionable play, but for them, you know, they're seeing exactly what they see in front of them and whatever their teammates are relaying to them. So we always have more information than the player at the time.
And also they have to make the decision when they're in that first person POV. Right. And that's not always easy, because sometimes it can be a matter of a second. And then that amount of time of hesitation can be enough to lose a round. It's a very difficult game. It has a very high learning curve, both at a casual and competitive level. And I think that's part of what makes it appealing to people. And so that's why I think it's kind of a hot take to always say, you know, like, oh, well, what's wrong with it, right? Yeah. Because people want to like kind of find like a vent to get their frustrations out. But at the end of the day, I don't feel like, I think when you say that, like, you know, Siege is becoming COD, I play COD.
Yeah. Me too.
I don't like people, you know, will freak out whenever I use my gimmick, I guess, is that with Modern Warfare 2, especially, which I kind of liked. A lot of people didn't like it. They added a lot of like siegeisms. They added like a kind of slower, like tactical approach to it. So when I played the game like that, all the stuff that I learned from playing Siege for like 6 years, I took and carried over into COD. And I always felt like I was a pretty decent aimer anyway. But I would take those concepts and apply them to COD, and then it's like, why is this guy sweating? It's like, I'm not sweating, dude. Like, I'm in a 2v1. I'm not gonna fight you. I'm just gonna sit and like isolate this one. Right? It's just like, oh, you know, well, you should have just like swung that angle for no reason, because that would have made you a lot cooler of a person. No, I want to win. Yeah, like, I don't. It's like people seem to care more. Like, it's a really weird like vanity thing with a lot of these. Like, I think that's where people get a lot of frustration from esports, because they have this idea that's unfairly kind of perpetuated, I think, by like weirdos online that treat like esports and FPS games as like self-aggrandizing kind of vanity projects. The joke that I always make is that, you know, with a lot of this was very popular at the advent of Modern Warfare 2. A lot of people were talking about the movement, how they slowed down the movement. That's what ultimately ruined the game. Blah blah blah. You know, that's a much more complicated conversation. But you would see like clips of people saying, "Oh, the movement's not dead," and it's just a bunch of like, just like jumping around and just like completely unnecessary, like superfluous movement. And people are like, oh, wow, this guy's movement is cracked. It's like, this is not like, the reason this is working is because he's in a lobby of people who maybe played like 2 weeks of FPS games most. And it's like, just the joke that I always made is, well, you have to, you know, take this unnecessary engagement, because it's better to look cool while losing than to just take the easy gunfight and win. Yeah. And so this is something that happens with Siege a lot. Is that 100%. People, I think, are more focused on the vanity of it. And so it's a very frustrating position, because you don't know who to balance the game for at times because of that.
Yeah. I'm gonna kind of cut off that little part there, because I feel like we're segueing a little bit away.
Rambly.
But I think before we move over to talking about the Frost Rework, I guess I wanted to chat quickly about sort of like we're talking about the state of the game in a more big sense, but more on the sort of like down on earth sense. Like obviously we're almost by the mid-season patch coming up soon. So I thought it could actually be kind of a fun little thought exercise. Like what kind of things, how are you feeling about the actual like state of the balancing of the game, of the design of the game, and sort of what changes you might hope or suspect to come with the mid-season patch, if there is one.
So this is
we'll see if we're right in a week or so.
So this is something I've gone back and forth on. You know, if you had talked to a version of me 3 years ago, I would have just said like full steam ahead on like pro league balancing. You know, like nobody cares about casual, like just full commit. And now I'm kind of at a point now where I'm starting to realize like, okay, this gap is a lot bigger than I thought.
It's also, and I was, it's a business, right? And if you alienate, 99.9% of your consumers, you're not going to have a lot of consumers left.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So I don't think the play is to just like make two versions of the game, one that only the esteemed elite professional players can truly understand, and the plebs get to have their little their scraps. Right. I don't think we should like segregate the community like that.
Yeah.
But I think I think that it is possible to have a fun game and a competitively balanced game at the same time. I don't think it's 100% a matter of picking one or the other. I do think that we have added pretty strong characters lately. We've added a lot of really strong defenders lately. True. That's not really, that's kind of the case. Azami.
Solis. Right. Solis.
Like Solis is a massive, like the reason that she is so good is because she interfaces with so much of what makes like the Siege gameplay loop unique. So it's kind of a weird situation, right? Where you have a character that can only have a gameplay loop that you can find in a Siege game, right? Like with the electronic denial. But the thing is, it really gets into some interesting like Siege theory crafting, because IQ, for various reasons, doesn't seem to have the same kind of strength on attack. But then when you look at it from a attack shooter fundamental point of view, the defense is always going to be in an advantageous position, right? When you strip it down. That's why attackers have so many options. That's why they have drones. That's why they have, they added attacker repick recently. That's why they have like so many of this like deployable, like electronic stuff.
Yeah.
And so when you give that ability to see it to the defense, then that can shut that. I mean, like, gosh, like on Bank, if you bring a Solus, like you just don't get the drone. Like, I mean, that whole
doesn't matter which map.
Game is just, like the top floor roam for Bank is just not a thing. Like you can, or the roam clear, I should say, is just not a thing. You basically have to commit to like Lion, Jackal, Doke, like a really aggressive, like get in the building as fast as you can and then try to work as much map control as fast as possible. Because if you don't, then Solus is just going to flank you later. And it's like,
Yeah. And even then, Solis can see the Lion, she can see the Blitz, she can see the Jackal, she can see the Dokkaebi. So even though that might be the most effective strategy to sort of deal with the Solis, she also deals with the strat that deals with her. So she's just so insanely powerful. And I think the reason why I dislike her so much, like Azami, I can deal with her for a bit more. Like I hope that they take their time and figure out a way to fix Azami without really making her less fun. Because I can still enjoy playing against her, because she feels really siegey. She's been one of the best additions to the game ever, right? So they can take their time with Azami, do it right. Don't do these weird ass suggestions. I've seen people say that like the barrier should self-destruct after 30 seconds. That completely ruins the character.
Don't gut the gameplay loop.
Exactly.
Don't gut the Azami gameplay loop. Interfacing with the map.
Yeah, don't take away what makes her fun. Take away what makes her strong. Which again, take their time. Take your time with it, Debs.
Or
please.
Add like attackers that can, just provide more of a counter.
Yeah, maybe toy around with.
That's the option I've always advocated for it. Like I think before, like I think we're at a point with like Siege balancing where like nerfing stuff should be a last resort.
Yeah.
Like that should be reserved for like really like egregious cases where like, okay, like we can't do anything more than what we've already tried. I think like, especially with the Solus situation, I would hate to see a nerf happen to Solus, even though I'm pretty sure it's probably going to be coming pretty soon. I would rather have IQ just reworked. I would rather have IQ reworked than just have her be
okay,
a hard counter like rivalry with Solus.
So
in that sense,
I agree that they could definitely look into buffing maybe a couple of things that, you know, potentially deal with bulletproof gadgets. So Ash, Zoe, Gun 6, right? What I don't agree with is not nerfing Solus, because I feel like Solus, compared to Azami, like Azami still contributes to the gameplay loop in a fun way. I think Solus, she punishes you for contributing to the gameplay loop in a good way. If you're the attacker who actually doesn't zoom in the building, you're actually putting in time and effort and actually try to drone people in. You try to, you know, use your gadgets. You actually try to plant the bomb instead of just going for 5 frags. That's the person that we're punishing with Solus on the board. We're punishing that support dad, that thermite player, that 25-year-old who's been put on a thermite. And she's so good at doing it too. You use Bank as an example. I tend to use Border as an example. If you put a Solus playing in Fountain on Border, she can basically just walk around in that room and she can see the entire map. Every corner of the map, she knows exactly where they're droning. She can see all the prep drones that they try to set up, which takes that out from the equation too. They can't see what kind of hold they're establishing and everything. She's just so powerful at what she does. And yeah, she can see the entire map. And then on top of all that, she can see the gadgets when they're being used. She can see the plant going down, and Border is mostly vertical, right? So you can counter the plant from below or above. And she just punishes she punishes you for playing Siege the correct way, and that's what I really dislike about her. Like, yeah, if you're a zoom you know, ranked Randy, then yeah, you're not gonna be too bothered by Solus. But I think if you're one of the guys like us who played Siege more as it's intended, she really punishes you for that, and it feels really bad to be punished for doing what I would consider in the game design to be the right thing to do.
That's a good point.
Yeah,
I think that I always found it kind of odd that she got an SMG 11. I understand that like the point of it was to like be able to combo it with the shotgun. That shotgun, I have so many issues with that.
I just run that in prep phase. I have so many issues
with that particular shotgun. Like I just have a particular bone to pick with that particular, just that shotgun. No other shotgun in Siege. Everything else is fine. The ITAL, it's called the ITAL because you don't know when you're going to take an L with the ITAL. It is so like, I don't like RNG gunfights because that's basically what that gun is. Like 5 times out of 10, it will one shot. Then the other 5 times out of 10, you will lose, which is silly. I understand the point of the SMG 11 combo there was to like, you know, double it up with that.
Yeah.
I've thought about the idea of like having like locked off kind of like weapon loadouts for situations like that, where it's like, okay, we don't want to give like this character 2 like really good, you know, super powerful weapons because the SMG 11 is like one of the best weapons in the game. And then she has a P90, which is also very good, 50 round mag, laser beam recoil, super high rate of fire.
Yeah.
So it's one of those situations where it's like if you don't really have like great like FPS aim, then you're not gonna like get much out of the P90. But if you're like a competitive player and your mechanics are really good, you can just fry, right? Because of one shot headshot, and then you have an SMG 11, and then you have impacts. I was thinking more along the lines of just like adding more operator bands. Which is something that I think Jescoat has mentioned every once in a while, is just like having a more in-depth kind of ban phase that's maybe a little bit quicker and ranked. I'm not a big fan of the downtime when you go into a ranked game where you're just kind of like sitting around. Like, I think that the comp model of like, you know, you go in, you know your bans ahead of time, and then just like boom, 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 is a little bit more efficient. I think that might be one way to alleviate the solusing.
So 2 points. First of all, the way League does it, and they obviously have like 140 characters now, so it's a more feasible to do their model. But in League, you just get to like everyone bans one champ at the same time, boom, and it's done. which might be an option upcoming. But I do agree that having more bans, especially for comp, would be really cool. It adds more strategy to the game, allows us to be more strategical. However,
I see a lot more variety in
the reason why we should add more bans should not be because we have operators that we want permabanned. Operators that we want permabanned should be fixed. Bans should be used for the purpose of doing something smart, to do something tactical, to shift the way the game has to be played. If we basically have one spot that's just reserved for an operator that should just not be that strong, then that's a problem on its own, and like that should not be solved by just permabanning them. We should actually like fix the issue with the operator.
I guess the frustrating thing with Solus is that there's not really a lot of characters like her on defense. Like,
yeah, I mean,
to your point, like Azami, like she makes, you know, destructible utility. Okay, yeah. There's ways we can work around that.
Yeah.
With Solus, like the only like particularly strong counter you have is IQ.
Yeah, and she's
with IQ, like she's in a really IQ is in such a weird spot because like there is that one like gameplay loop that you can get where it's like, okay, I can make a play with the IQ and then isolate the Solus and then, you know, win my one with her, and that's really fun.
Yeah,
but it happens so rarely, and there's like so many things that have to happen in order for that to happen. And also, Solus can see her. Like whenever I play Solus, if I get on the scanner and I see IQ, I just run. And so then you're just kind of like, okay, well, what are we doing here?
It's also
I thought about having IQ reworked in the sense where like she could get on the scanner and then she could just like do like a zap of God from above and just like EMP zap somebody from on high. That's something I've thought about. That might be kind of an overpowered gameplay loop in general, but I would like to see it tested as well.
I bounced an idea like that before. I think I made a little mock-up where she like essentially like deactivates an air jab for a couple of seconds, like an individual stun.
Maybe lore reasons, like she collaborated with Takebi to make the I5 beat boop scanner Mark II, you know, or whatever, like something, you know, to like explain it away.
Yeah, because the whole issue with at least the argument around like, oh, IQ can just counter Solus. The issue is you don't want to play the entire game as a 4v5 because IQ essentially has to babysit a Solus, and Solus can just jump on the scanner, look around for 2 seconds, and she has all the info she needs, and you only go on the Solus scanner for a couple of seconds, and IQ can't just sit and like, where are you, you know, for the entire round. That's not really a feasible thing.
Also, having to run around with your pistol sucks.
Yeah, exactly. Like, you're basically 4v5. Someone else has to act on the info that you're getting because, I mean, again, Solus can fend for herself. She has really good guns. She has, I mean, the SMG-11, like you said, it's really good. Like SMG-11 is arguably too good. We might not need to go there, but this is just opinions, man. Yeah, I think. I hope to see I hope to see maybe some buffs on the attacker side, especially when it comes to like dealing with stuff like maybe Azami and such. But I would definitely hope that we get to see some sort of Solus nerf, probably like reducing the range and adding a cooldown in prep phase.
Don't hit her too hard because I think you're gonna have a really big backlash, and that's not gonna be fun. I think Siege players in general just kind of have nerf fatigue right now.
But that's why it's important to make up for it by also doing buffs. Like as long as you don't do nerfs, because we've seen that as well. Like announcing what is essentially a nerf at the SI is not a good way of hyping people up for content. Buffs are more hype. Like nerfs have to be done, absolutely, but unless it's something really like broken that nobody wants to play against, it's not going to be seen as a good thing. Now, I do personally think that Solus is that broken to the point where I'm going to be excited for a nerf, but they definitely should always be like trying to compensate some sort of buff in order to essentially deliver new content, because that's what balancing is. Balancing is a way to deliver content without actually shipping something new. You're spicing
I think they
things
should
up.
do the Dota 2 model.
I agree.
Make everyone OP.
I agree. I mean,
if everyone's OP, nobody's OP.
In a weird way, I would almost say Siege has done sort of a good job there. I mean, some of the old developers, the old creative director Leroy, he was a big fan of Dota, and I know that there's even been like a couple of Siege characters that have been inspired directly from Dota before Valorant. I know that they.
Why is Valorant catching strays?
Hey, I mean that's what everyone complains about. Oh, they're just copying Valorant heroes. Yeah, they've been copying Dota champions for years. Shut up. But it's. I know they were testing.
Yeah, I'm a Viper main, so I didn't mind Sense personally. Yeah.
Yeah, I like Neon. She was cool. Yeah, they. I know they were testing a Dota character. No, not a Dota character. A Siege character once that was inspired by Morphling from Dota 2. I don't know how much Dota you've been playing, but Morphling can basically change between strength or agility, so tanky versus damage. So I remember they were testing. I was told that they had once tested a Siege character
like armor
that was.
types?
Yeah, so the character could swap between being a 3 armor or a 3 speed.
What the heck?
Yeah, obviously kind of boring, but still like interesting to hear that like you know they were basically like testing a character right off of the bat. Like they took a Dota character and like boom, let's toss this into Siege.
It's not a terrible idea.
It's kind of boring.
I think that you could. It is a little boring, but I think you could kind of make an argument for like running really quickly to like an in place position and then switching armor types and then having like, because that's the one thing that like Osa was one of the few examples I can think of where it was like, okay, she got an armor change and that really helped her out because she was able to like take one more shot when she's kind of like quick peeking off of the shield than she normally would be able to. Yeah. But Osa is unique in the attacker sense that she plays a lot more stationary.
I think
so. In that instance, that kind of worked. But for everybody else, I'm kind of like,
I think the one way they can maybe keep it interesting enough is if they actually made it so that like once you go into armor mode, we're talking real armor mode, like ballistic shield type beat. Like when you go into the sprint mode, you put the shield on your back and you sprint really fast. But once you have the shield up, that's when you're big boy. You're the 4 armor basically. Like because then you can at least keep it like a specific type of gameplay, so it's not just like, oh, I'm swapping armor. But anyways,
shields the way that they're implementing the game right now make me want to run through a wall.
Okay. Season 4, we're gonna be there soon.
I know. I'll be okay.
I'm excited for that. I'm
too.
I hope some ideas that I pitched might make its way into the game with that. But anyways,
it's all Keeney.
I'm the puppet master.
He's the CEO. It's him. It's all him.
Yeah, but we'll see if they might test it out on the lab when they do test their the shield rework. Because I think there's a lot of spicy things they can do once they ship that. I think it's gonna allow them to not only do more things with the shields in general, but potentially ship new shield ups. And also maybe give ballistic shields to existing operators. I think there are characters in the game that could actually benefit from a new playstyle that includes the ballistic shields. Thermite being one of them.
Like I like the idea behind Fuse having a shield.
Yeah, same.
But he has an AK-12.
Yeah, the
when
choice
the
is
hell would
cool.
I ever bring the shield? Yeah.
Yeah. But anyways, we're 50 minutes in and we're
kind of over.
But we knew this was gonna happen. We both love to ramble, so you just have to bear with us. We're new at this. But yeah, so next topic, Frost Rework. So you have been very vocal. You uploaded a video talking about the thing. I've been very vocal about it on stream. I haven't really talked in videos because that's not really what I do personally, but this is going to be the way that I can sort of communicate that, I guess. But why don't you start? You made a video on it.
I hate the way people talk about live service games in 2023 because it's never contextualized.
Yeah.
It's never like it is the knee-jerk reaction, and then there's no point at which the take ever gets adjusted down the line, which is something that I tend to do. Like we were talking about this earlier, where it's sort of like we're in a situation where people feel kind of like compelled to give a take right away. Yeah, I've been in that kind of situation as a content creator. I'm figuring out how to adjust my workflow to to avoid less egg on face kind of moments like with Fenrir. When I was playing Fenrir for the first time and I saw like the whole like code thing, I was like, what? No, this is awful. This is not going to work. They're just going to shoot the trap right away. And then I never like, just the fact that I never considered the fact that you could close the trap up and it's bulletproof. That just never occurred to me when I was, initially looking at it. And I was like, oh, like,
and to build off, yeah. and to build off of that, when Solis was shipped on the content creator test servers, I would say a majority thought she was useless. Like we were all like, oh my god, it's Jover. I didn't. It's Jover, I wanna make that clear. I stood
on the record.
Yeah, I stood firm in that. But there was a lot of people that said, she's borderline useless. But that was contextualized in the way that a lot of those content creator games were going. Nobody droned. People just ran in. They wanted to play defenders. And Solis didn't really see a lot of light. But once she got out on, now we know. But yeah, like there's so many like knee-jerk reactions, and I do feel like the Frost Rework
definitely falls into that.
100%. I think it like. I'm personally
if this
with
was
it.
I'm sorry to cut you off. I just want to add, like, I think like if this was just a little thing thrown into a mid-season note, like just foot in at the end of like, here's the big, the cube graphic. Oh, we changed this thing for Frost. If they had never said anything about it up until this point, you get like, a Twitter like rip Frost. I mean, we would boot up a stream and then they'd be like, hey, content creator, thoughts on Frost Rework. I ruined my favorite op, and then it would be over in a week.
They should have never made it a big deal.
Panel is
since it is a straight up nerf, which again I think it's fine. However, making a nerf seem like you're adding content to the game is just
not the play.
Stupid. I'll be completely honest. It's extremely stupid. When it comes to like how it actually goes into the game, it's nowhere near as big of a deal as people are making it out to be. I think, like you said in your video, I think 99 out of 100 frost mats are still going to end up in that attacker dying.
There's going to be like that 10% of situations where somebody gets out of frost mat.
And in the 99% of those cases, they're going to lose their next firefight anyways.
Because they're weak.
Yeah. What it does open up is it now opens up for that potential clutch moment for the attacker where they actually have a chance to win that last 1v1. Like, let's just use an example. Like we're talking Clubhouse, CC. The window has a frost mat on it. And the attacker is in a 1v1 with the Frost, or anyone else, it doesn't matter who the defender is. But yeah, they're coming in from garage. Their only way to enter with the time on the clock is through that window. And the defender is laying by the CC window, prone. And you have to vault in, and you have to kill the defender, and you have to kill the Frostmat at the same time. You cannot win. You cannot win. That is gone now. You can win now.
Yeah.
You can slam the defender that's laying there, and you can get out of the Frostmat. You can actually win the round. That is not the case now in the current live.
That was the whole point of the change, and I think they needed to do like. First of all, like you said, they shouldn't have put it in the panel, but they also needed to make that evident in the panel. Yeah,
now you actually have those slight moments where you as an attacker actually have a chance to win. And also, on top of all this, like Frost is overperforming, not by a whole lot. But there are two things to consider. One, she is overperforming. Has a 40% pick rate, and I think she has a +2, +3-ish win rate. And also, the thing you have to consider with that is that both her and Capcan, they're kind of at the same spot. There are trap operators. Trap operators should not be performing well when they're picked often, because they are supposed to be stronger when you least expect them. But when trap operators are picked nearly half the time and people expect them to be on the lineup, then they should also not be as effective as they are in the data. So there's a lot of ways that people misinterpret the data in the designer notes. They just simply look like, oh, that one's being played a lot, but they have a low win rate, so they're fine. Or like, oh, they're not being played at all and they have a really high win rate, so they're a problem. No, of course, like Rook is not a problem, even though he has a huge win rate, because he's just picked as a comfort thing and he works. And Clash is not a bad operator by any means, even though she's at, negative 10% win rate. Like, she's still really good in the right hands. Yeah,
Smoke is not a bad operator.
Yeah, he's one of the best.
Anybody who looks at these charts and then they like see like the line go below and they're like, these characters are bad,
there's context.
Just shouldn't be taken seriously.
There's so much context. And when trap operators are doing good, they're doing really good. Right? You have to take that into context. Trap operators should not be played very often and also do well when they are. It's the same reason why I think Jaeger is sitting sort of at like 50% pick rate, which is fairly high, but is also sitting at a low win rate, which kind of makes it fine because, yes, a lot of people sort of gravitate towards him as a comfort pick, but a lot of people aren't putting in the effort to actually use him well, and that's kind of why he's sitting at a low win rate and why it's actually fine. Whereas if you have something that's a really high pick rate and win rate, then not only are they sort of a comfort pick, but they're also just performing really well while just being a comfort pick, which is also indicative of an issue.
I was on the record with the, the way that the dev team in 2020 was handling that situation with Jaeger. Completely different group of people working on it now. I think that people still kind of have like they're like taking a lot of that like kind of negative energy that they manifested with the previous, we can call it the previous administration, like siege politics, right? But the new team that's involved in the project now, completely different group of people. I have a completely different opinion of how they're handling things right now. I love this new staff.
I wouldn't really say I've had like
what happened with the Frost,
I wouldn't really say I've like had a bad image of like the way that they've done things. I think my issue has always been that they're too slow at doing things, but I do think that,
and that's more of like a Ubisoft like corporate turnaround thing that I'm not gonna like try to pretend that I know like what the like day-to-day workflow looks like at the company. That's what I was talking about in the video. But I mean, I've been a professional long enough to understand that like there's people working on this, and I'm not saying that like leave the devs alone, leave the multi-million-dollar corporation alone. I'm literally just saying like you have to take into consideration that like there are human beings that are gonna like you have to calculate like mistakes and slow down and like back and forth, and like things just don't always go according to plan. Lord knows, I think anybody involved in the esports industry can attest to you like how many times they have to send an email that's like, hey, just following up on this, just following up on this, just following up on this, just to get like a payment for a contract. Right. So there's like things like that happen in there's little like logistical things that happen with game development, and game development gets more complex every single year. The technology gets more complex, and then the demands keep scaling with that. So there's like more man hours that are demanded for the same like level of work, or the same product, I should say. And when it comes to the Frost rework, I think it was just, it was just a little L. I think what happened was they were like going through like this new turnaround with like a lot of people coming on board, and then they drafted a plan for like, okay, here, what are we going to do for year 8? Okay, well, we have an idea. Can we get like this kind of content thing rolled out? Because like the shield stuff is happening towards like the tail end of the year. So the fact that they're putting that to the tail end of the year tells me that they want to make sure that isn't like a screw up. They want to make sure that lands and it does well. It minimizes issues, right? They want to make sure that it rolls out and that it has positive reception. And that's every like live service game right now. You have like the beginning of the year, it starts out really strong. There's like a lot of like, you build up hype. You'll have like a big LAN event. We have our Siege Mecha. We have Invite, the big panel. Like, here's a new character, blah, blah, blah. And then in the middle of the year, it gets kind of slow. That's just sort of how it happens. And so they were probably just looking for stuff to talk about. And they were like, okay, do we have anything lined up? Well, we wanted to do this thing with Frost. We've been working on that for, a couple months. Okay, we'll just throw it in the panel. I think maybe like the marketing team had a little bit more oversight than the balance team at the time, and so they can't really say no. So they throw it in the panel, and like that's just how it goes. Like
I think they were really smart to move around the observation blockers with the Frost rework, though, for multiple reasons. Obviously, gather more data on the Frost rework, but also just like I think the observation blockers themselves actually help Frost be better. You can actually use them to sort of mask where the frost mets are actually hiding.
I think the ops blockers are super slept on right now.
Oh yeah, they are 100%. I shipped a video today just covering some tips and tricks and yada yada on the observation blockers, and I hope that video does well, but they're super slept on. I agree.
Too much coffee.
Yeah, going back on the sort of knee-jerk Frost reaction, I think the one thing that I really disliked about the reaction to Frost was that we only saw the mechanical change of the gadget. Now we obviously know that there are no numbers changing, but when I saw the thing I always try to keep in mind this might not just be it. We're seeing the mechanical change, and I think the mechanical change itself is good. And even if this is a nerf, you know, there are always ways for them to sort of buff it later on to the point where long term this becomes a really healthy change for the game. Like maybe she gets more traps, maybe the Frosts have more health, and that's still on the table. Like, if they're most likely going to ship this rework, I think. And if it is like that big of a nerf as people are making out to be, it's not the end of the world. They're gonna be able to buff it in other ways where, you know, we still keep a healthier mechanic in the game while still making her better.
I think sorry.
No, and lastly, I think the biggest sort of counter argument that people have used to justify hating on the Frost rework is that there are other operators that needed reworks more.
I want to segue into that when you're done.
Yes, I was just gonna say that, and like we know that. Here's the thing, like the Frost rework probably doesn't require as many resources because it's not like a huge rework. It's more a mechanical change, whereas say operators like Blackbeard that any sane person wants completely reworked, that's going to take a lot more resources. That, you know, we're going to have to rework that gadget from the ground up. It has to be something completely new. The rifle shield just needs to be scrapped, and that's going to take more time. And like I would have loved to have seen that too, but you know, it's going to take more time, and they better do it right than rush something like that through.
Gamers don't think about the logistical, like what needs to be done, like the actions that the staff is taking to make a thing happen before they open their mouth. Right? They just see like what happened with the panel, right? The psychological effect that we had of like, this is stuff that we think about all the time as like, you know, marketing people, right? Like involved in content creation. The fact that it had a spotlight on it during a panel made it seem like there was more attention being diverted to it than it actually was.
Yeah.
And like you said, from a resource point of view, probably the only thing that really happened is like, okay, let's think about it from, you know, like brass tacks, right? Like you have to code, like you have to animate the whole, like taking the thing off, right? That's animation that you have to add in. Okay. I don't know how to animate, but I'm going to assume it's not like, you know, compared to like making a whole new game from scratch, going like boom with the bear trap, not that crazy.
Fun fact.
Then you have to like code in, okay, like when this interaction takes place, comes back up at 25 health. Yeah.
That animation, I'm pretty sure, has existed as long as Frost has. Not that it was not that it was ever used. But a lot of the times when it comes to like developing, you know, operators and gadgets, they always, you know,
code contingency plans.
Exactly, because we have seen sometimes the game bug out when people have gotten Finca steamed the moment they hit a frost mat, and then they did that animation really quickly. So I'm pretty certain that animation has even been in the game for a while. So really, they just had to code the interaction. I'm pretty sure. I could be wrong.
And they probably wrote up that probably goes back to my point. They wrote up like the year 8 plan, and they were like, okay, what do we have lying around? We need to put something in here, you know, just to like say something. And they were like, okay, well, we have these resources lying around. We wanted to do this in, you know, season 2 or season 3. Okay, here you go. Yeah, it's probably even less resource management focused than people think.
But yeah, like note to Yubi, when you want to hype people up, do it with buffs. Nerfs are good, like don't get me wrong, but don't use that as the big, you know, that's not the main thing at the party, you know. It's not what's gonna get people excited unless it's something really annoying to play against. Stuff like the shields.
I would like it for 15-year-olds who play video games all day to use their brain just for 2 seconds. Like I get it. I was there. I was looking for a meme on my from Facebook that I made when I was in like middle school, and then I had to do like the whole scroll down, and I was like, oh my god, no. I was like, okay, I get it. No, because that put a lot of things into perspective for me. I understand. At the same time, is it an M-rated game? I'm pretty sure it is. I forget. Yes,
something like that, 16 or 18. Yeah,
adults. It's for adults. I don't. Obviously, a lot of people don't. Yeah, you know, I didn't. Right, but let's just kind of take that into consideration and go like, okay, it's only a video game. Yeah, it's okay. And at the same time, if people were worried about the operator getting nerfed, then it's like, well, this shows like this shows where Ubisoft's mind is this is their philosophy. This is how they feel about us. What are you talking about? Like you have so many things that like, okay, I'm just gonna hot take, like the casual community can rejoice in season 4 because we're getting like a whole patch, just dedicate a whole content patch season, 3 months dedicated to shields. So we can't talk about it. You can't say that Ubisoft only cares about Pro League. My Pro League, my precious. Right? That's silly, right? I'm pretty sure like the shield stuff is going to roll out in season 4, and I can already see like the writing on the wall there. There's going to be like, you know, someone is going to get like a crazy play with the shield, and then you're going to have like you know, at pro player _ dash, you know, .. whatever, and they're going to be like, you know, this is going to ruin the game, revert this, and then there's going to be another pro player underneath that saying it's fine, skill issue, because pro players disagree with each other all the time on balance decisions for the game. It's not a monolith. Like, just chill out. That's all I'm asking people to do. I think it would make it easier for yourself and make it easier on the devs too, because then the devs want to have good feedback as well.
And on that note, I think it's also important for I'm gonna flip that on its head. We see a lot of the times pro players, you know, actually complain about the fact that they're not necessarily getting what they want, which again, like to the many people that are sort of pushing the whole narrative that you know, pro players get all they want. No, that is not the case, and there are also good reasons for that, for the pro players that might be mad that they're not getting what you want, and that is because you can have a personal bias. A pro player, you know, who has opinions on the game are not necessarily going to be objective for what's best of the game. They're going to care about their own livelihood, you know, what benefits them, what makes them win their game, what secures their livelihood further in the league, you know, and that goes down to everything.
Are you implying that they're all people and they have implicit biases?
Yeah, it's like crazy, right? Like, you know, at the end of the day, it's a huge process with millions of people that have very different opinions and play different types of Siege, which is fine. You know, that's part of what makes Siege really awesome, is that it can serve so many people playing in different ways, and there are definitely some ways that, you know, the devs might consider less preferable, but yeah, like
my
I don't know.
Run down main stairs, Ash. My bad.
Yeah. But yeah, like at the end of the day, we have something really cool here, and at the end of the day, we're all in this crazy ride together, and you know, we gotta, you know, we shouldn't. Can we just go back to the time where instead of bashing on each other, where we just try and like create a war with the COD people? That was more fun when we stood united against the COD kids or whatnot. That was more fun. It was like, get good. I miss those days when instead of like agreeing with the people that were your first thing would do is complain, but we just
we had like a 2 year, we had like a year and a half, like 2 year stint where we would just do nothing but nerf guns, and I was very vocal in like saying stop, like do things with the game loop, like do things mechanically, and then they like, you know, I don't know if this started happening when they had the new team come on board, but then they made the decisions that they wanted to do with the gunplay, so they, you know, they didn't have to do the stupid like gun whack-a-mole every single time. They slowed down movement in certain aspects, and then, you know, kind of like evened it out a little bit, and then they adjusted the recoil in Brutal Swarm, so you can't just like, you know, mouse one forever on the same angle, and then they moved on, and I'm like, okay, cool, thank you.
Also, reload canceling. Thank you. That
like all I wanted Ubisoft to do was just, you know, just pick a direction. You know, do you want it to be like arcadey, kind of like Bolo Lean, or do you want it to be a little bit more thoughtful and deliberate? And it looks like they picked one. So
and that shows in so many aspects too. Like not just the gameplay. Like I'm kind of segueing completely away from the point we wanted to talk about, but just seeing the direction with the game in general and sort of where they've been taking the lore. Like they're going to a much more sinister, dark tone, and yeah, it's so good. The whole Demus arc thing that they have with the lore, like I didn't mind the whole like Olympic Siege games type beat, but the thing that they've done, I'm actually like interested in the lore now, and it's like, damn.
I didn't mind the Olympic thing. I think the only thing I didn't like about the Olympic game stuff was the whole like Team Ash versus Team Cali thing.
Oh yeah, why did Mira lose?
That was
Mira is the
lame.
best girl. How did she lose, man? How did she lose?
I think trying to make Callie and like Nighthaven into a main villain was really goofy and kind of I was just like, no, this
Siege,
is a dated
Civil
like,
War.
story. Yeah, and Callie was just not a compelling villain at all.
Yeah.
Like her whole thing was just like, you can't girl boss like I can. I'm the most evil, cunning girl boss there is. And Ash was like, shut up. And that was like the whole like arc.
And
now
Ace was just in the background like crunk. It's like, pull the lever, Ace. Wrong lever.
Now Callie is like in a really I love like what they've done with her character arc in the in more recent memory.
Yes.
And especially like at the beginning of Demon Vale, like with the whole angle they were going with there, we should have just had a whole section just for like siege lore bullshit. But like the whole like QCR sort of like, okay, I found the bullet and it's like linked to Nighthaven. I was sort of like, okay, I'm not really buying this. Who's this guy?
Their segue was great.
Yeah, but then they made I think that was all like, you have to, when you're doing like a really, really big story arc transition like that, you kind of have to take some liberties and just sort of go like, okay, we need exposition. Just hold on for a second and just wait, and just kind of endure it for a bit. The payoff was so worth it with the whole like Solus like infiltrating Nighthaven and then like apprehending Callie at the lab, and then the whole like sequence of like, someone's someone's stolen my tech and is selling it, and they had like the whole like the finger guns and the fight with Cav. That whole within the laser pointers, like that was sick, and it's in the rain, and there's all this like it was really good.
I tried to tell you, like, Solus is so busted. She doesn't even need real weapons. She can just use finger guns, bro.
She was even more broken than they.
Yeah,
that's the thing that I was talking to you about. It's like what is really difficult with this sort of like game balancing direction is that you have to make a balanced game, but also like sell the whole like appeal of like, you have this like cutting edge tech and like, you're in the driver's seat of this, particularly, powerful and really tactically intricate and strategically intricate unit. And you have to sell like, being in the shit. And I think that's something that Siege is, embracing a lot more of lately. And I love that. I think they need to do more of that. But I also understand that you can't just make every character, you can't add Solus every single season.
With that
you
said,
can add a Zami every once in a while, but you can't add Solus. Solus is a little too like,
yeah. With that said, I will take a Solus or an Asami over a Launch Grim any day of the week.
And yes,
it's just more fun. We actually get to make content on it. We get things to talk about. It actually feels like the game changes. They did some cool stuff in Brutal Swarm. I would still rate Brutal Swarm fairly high because of all the other balance changes that went on in that season. We had, I think it was like Twitch, and I think there was the EMP impacts came as well. Might have been that. And then what they did with Rook and Doc, like they suddenly became competitively viable because Rook could be used to counter nades from below, and Doc could, make big plays with the full heal. And that was awesome. Like that actually made Brutal Swarm quite fun for me. My biggest issue there was probably the cheaters. But anyways, ship good characters and tone them down later. And please don't wait 9 months to do it. Please, I don't want to play against Solus in that state. But anyways, I think, thoughts on Frost Rework? Probably fine. Everyone is making too big of a deal out of it. The devs started by making too big of a deal out of it. Then everyone reacted by making too big of a deal out of it. And now we're sitting here doing an entire topic just for that, because of the fact that people have made a big deal out of it. It's not a big deal, really. But
you'll be okay.
Yeah, you'll be okay. So
he's probably gonna get picked like pretty much just as much. I don't see that like little thing like moving up and down much at all.
Yeah, I agree. But moving on to something that's a bigger deal, we got rank 2.0.
This is the spicy one. This is the
spicy one. See, everyone's gonna be like, "Oh man, here comes the streamers, and they're gonna justify."
The casual community has started a war.
Oh man, okay. So general look on things. obviously looking at sort of the Solar Raid when they shipped rank 2.0, it's undeniably that it's been sort of a good addition to the game in that sense, in terms of bringing popularity in.
I like playing with my friends.
That's been the best part. The fact that they have unlocked that squad MMR thing, super good. But I think there's just so much, like, whenever I see people sort of complain about it, I can kind of get that, like, if you're a higher rank, like if you're a pro player and you're like, oh, I'm a pro player, I play in a pro player 5-stack, and I played 40 games and I got my champ rank 2.0 moment. Like, yeah, like you have two.
You're in the top. You're not even in the top 1%. That's like top 0.05.
Yes, like are you surprised?
Even more than that.
like it's so wild. Like, yeah, you're a pro player 5-stack playing against, you know, maybe some kiddos that just got home from school, and, you know, they're still good, don't get me wrong, but at the same time, you are who you are, and of course you're gonna, like, win 40 games in a row and get into champion. Like,
just statistics.
There's so much going back to confirmation bias. There's so much confirmation bias that goes into the way that people look at rank 2.0. And another issue I have with it is that everyone is using all of these trackers, and I don't mind trackers personally, like myself. I just really dislike the way that people misuse trackers. They're either used to,
I think it's something about the culture.
Oh yeah, 100%. It comes down from, you look at League of Legends, you know, and you see like, oh damn, he's a 3 million Yasuo player. We've already lost in draft, so we might as well just surrender now. And same thing happens in Siege. It's like, oh, they have a 99% chance to win, so we might as well just cancel legit players here so we keep our elo. Because that's another thing. People rather care about actually ranking up than actually getting better at the game.
Same thing happened to World of Tanks. Same thing happened to World of Warships. They have like little like stat tracky apps, and you can see where the matchmaking is working to keep everybody like kind of around like a 50% win rate. And then you go, but the problem is that since everybody has a tracker, right? You go into the game, and then it's like, oh well, this is chalk. Let's go next. And then it's like, okay, that's great, man. Now I have to spend 25 minutes out of my day in a game that like we could have won, but since everyone wants to be bummed out about it, we're not going to have our heads in the game, and then we're just going to, then it's already over. Like, so what the hell am I doing? Like, I'm spending 25 minutes just wasting my time. Like, I don't know. It's silly.
I think my personal gripe is that whenever I see people say that like rank 2.0 is bad, I've watched countless of takes on Twitter. I've watched videos of people covering it, not naming anyone, but like, I have yet to see someone talk bad about rank 2.0 and actually be able to deliver an explanation as to how it works. I've seen people say that like, oh, no other game has hidden MMR. Brother in Christ, every single game made in the last, every single multiplayer game made in the last 10-15 years has hidden MMR.
There's so many games that like deliberately conceal the way that the matchmaking works, like to the public.
Yeah, and they use like Valorant. They use Valorant as a good example of how things work. And fun fact, rank 2.0 is sort of not exactly, but it's more similar to the Riot way of doing a ranked model, where you have a hidden MMR and your visual rank is sort of chasing that. And people always say like, oh, how is it a good thing that when I lose 20 elo, and when I win, I gain 80, so I'm always just going to be ranking up? Yes and no. It's going to be like that until you reach your sort of hidden MMR. This is how League of Legends does it. This is how Valorant does it. And I'm sure you can find other games that do it, except Apex. Apex seems to genuinely have a shit ranked system, but that's...
It's just like, people will, like, nobody wants to contextualize anything.
Yeah.
There's no context, does not exist. There's no, like, you look at like the way like, oh, well, the math equation works like this. And then you go, okay, but here's like the rest of the way that the system is, supposed to work. Well, it works like this for like 10 of my examples. So that proves my argument.
It's also like, here's the thing. You might be losing 20 elo visually. And to be fair, I think that's a good thing, because that's actually much less tilting than with the old system, where you would just go back and forth, back and forth, back and forth when you were winning and losing. Here's the thing, you're still losing hidden MMR. If you lose a ton of games, like even if you might have that day gone net positive, you won, 100 elo and you lost 20 elo 3 times, like sure, that's a net gain of 20 elo. However, at the very top where your hidden MMR is, which you haven't gotten to yet, that might have changed significantly. You might have dropped a lot more in that sort of hidden rank, which is where you will get to eventually once you played enough games. The issue is that people play 10 games and then it's like, oh, this is the experience of rank 2.0. Yeah. That's not how it works. You're still always, if you lose, you're losing elo, you're losing MMR, which your visual rank will eventually contextualize as you get closer to it. And sure, again, if you are a competitive player that has played, Siege and hit the highest ranks or close to the highest ranks, then yes, it's basically going to be like a battle pass for you. But don't be surprised when you're a pro player and your hidden MMR is champ. That's
the way it should be.
Yeah. Start taking a look.
People with 3,000 hours worth of gameplay experience are going to be able to make win conditions out of more situations than somebody with 30 hours.
Yeah, and it's also
how it works. Like
they're always talking with their friends and using that as, again, a way to confirm their own bias around the system. But start talking to people that don't have, a high hidden MMR, like champ or even diamond or whatnot. Like I've spoken to people that have hidden MMR silver, and they come to me instead and say, hey, why am I gaining less points than I'm losing? Because you're higher visual rank than your hidden MMR. But you don't see those, because most of the people that are very active in the community are going to be people that are taking the game more serious and are playing at a higher level. So for them, it's going to take a while until they get to that point where it starts slowing down. But when you have a low hidden MMR, that's not what's going to happen. And in order to get your hidden MMR higher, you have to, over a long course of time, beat people that are a higher MMR, which usually doesn't happen. So you kind of get stuck in that. And that can create some frustrating moments where like you feel like you deserve to be a higher hidden MMR than you are, which to be honest, Siege could do a really good job at this by just allowing you to see your own hidden MMR. Like just let me check it personally. Like don't give the info to the enemies and stuff, because we already know that through trackers that people are really bad at interpreting info like that. But allow me to know what my true skill is, because I think that would clear up a lot of the confusion. Like, why am I gaining so much? Because I'm not there yet. I'm not where my true skill is. I think that would help a lot of people.
It's just a different way of charting the data. It's more like a log scale than it is like a bell curve.
We could
like most people are going to play a couple of games and then they'll be like, oh, okay, I'm like bronze or silver after they play like 10 matches. And then if you played like 100 games, then it's going to look a little bit different.
Yeah,
but at the end of the day, if you are at like champ elo, you're going to progress down that like logarithmic kind of curve a lot faster, because as soon as you like cross the threshold of like maybe about like the top like 25th percentile of players, it's just like it becomes a lot easier to just keep going.
And here's the fun fact: we had a rank. Well, everyone's saying like, oh, return to rank 1.0. Rank 1.0 had a similar system.
Everybody hated rank 1.0.
Yeah, but
we all hated rank 1.0.
Rank 1.0 had a similar system too. You still had a hidden MMR that your visual MMR was chasing. That's why, maybe after your placements were done, you were still gaining like 100 for a win and you didn't lose as much, because again, it was chasing that hidden MMR. And once you got, higher, you started gaining like 20 points max, and maybe you started losing like 30 whenever you lost. That's the same system. The only real difference is that now we start from the true zero, whereas with rank 1.0, we would start closer to where we were. They could have literally just masked the change with rank 2.0 by just not showing your visual rank until you get close to your hidden MMR, and nobody would have noticed the difference. Maybe you would have just had to play a lot more placement games. Like instead of 10, maybe you would have had to play 20 or 30. As you got to like maybe with like 1,000 elo range of where hidden MMR is, and maybe that's less confusing. I don't know, but at the end of the day, it's important to know that until you start getting to that like gain 30, lose 30 range, you are not yet where the game determines that you're supposed to be, basically. And that's fine.
It's like a vanity metric anyway.
Yeah.
I mean, like, it's cool to get the champion charm. I mean, like, there's a reason that, you know, you have like the YouTube thumbnail, like, you know, YouTube content creator thumbnail starter pack is like, you know, looking at the sky with an R4C
Coastline.
and then diamond charm.
Got
yeah,
a coastline.
and it's coastline because the lighting. Fun. Yeah, major key alert for anybody trying to get into the game. The lighting's really good there. That's why everybody does it. But
oh, labs
yeah,
is good now though. You gotta spice it up. Go labs. Labs is really nice.
True.
With the lightning. Yeah.
True, labs is good. But the whole like, you know, people like to see, you know, number go up. They like to see the charm because it's like it's the highest thing. And before that, we had diamond. I mean, I remember people like now it's like, you know, now people like you tell them, oh well, there's a rank called emerald now, and they're like, oh, what's the point? I don't know. I mean, like at the end of the day, like nothing matters except champ, right? Yeah. Well, yeah. The whole argument that I was making was like, okay, well, you know, if you can't make champ, then you suck. So then rank 2.0 comes out, and then it's like, oh, if you can't make champ, then you suck. Then you hit champ, and it's like, well, it doesn't matter because it's rank 2.0.
Yeah, and it's
like pick one, dude. Like pick a struggle.
I mean, the real base take here is that rank doesn't really mean jack shit. I've seen people with the champ charm be the most clueless, lobotomized chimpanzees I've ever seen. They have no clue what they're doing. They're just swinging for the sake of swinging. They have no clue how to leverage man advantage or do any kind of strategy. They still reinforce every single wall on kitchen coastline, and they do not deserve to be champ, but they are. So that's another, and that was an issue in ranked 1.0 too. Yeah. That has nothing to do with
ranked matchmaking. Is to give players a way to play a quick game of Siege efficiently. And without you know spending a lot of time, right? That's the whole point of like the online matchmaking system, is to get people into games and playing Siege.
Yeah.
If you're a professional player, especially like if you're at that point where you're like making a name for yourself, you're not going to be, you know, most of the time you're going to be spending doing scrims, practice, and then when you do want to play ranked, that's just, you know, you kind of just like cutting your teeth and kind of keeping yourself sharp, you know, with you and your friends.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, like you're not going to be playing like ranked and competitive the same way, and it shouldn't be treated the same way either. Like I just don't understand where it is with people and their what they want out of the ranked matchmaking.
Yeah.
And you know, it's just like
to go off of that, the last counter argument that I think we can break down is that people always tend to say they're like, oh, I'm in silver but I'm playing plats. And here's the thing, your visual MMR is silver. You are not actually silver. With the old system, then yes, you would be playing a couple of games in a rank lower than you were supposed to be in, which is bad because obviously you're going to stump people that are actually in silver, which would obviously not create a fair game. Now with the new system, you're always going to be queuing off of that hidden sort of peak rank that the game thinks you're supposed to be in, and which is also how it determines how good you actually are. You know, if you're playing against plats, the game considers that you can actually make your visual rank all the way to plat, and if you're losing those games, then yeah, it's gonna go lower. It's gonna go gold until you actually get silver. But at the end of the day, it's determined that you're plat for a reason. So just get over that sort of mental block that you're in silver, because you're not. You are in plat, and you can win that game. It's put you up against people that the game thinks you actually have a chance of beating, and hell, you might even have a higher chance of winning. They just played more games so far this season. It's
a team-based game. There's so many different things that go into winning it. Like the list is endless. Like I learn something new playing the game every single day.
Yeah,
and it, like Kickstarter said it best. Rest in peace. You know, like rank doesn't mean effing anything.
Yeah,
like it's just the freaking
it doesn't mean anything. It's like it's a fancy little thing next to your name, and that's as good as it really goes. And my biggest issue with how we're all looking at rank is that people are just looking at ranking up not actually getting better. People are looking at, you know, and the same thing comes for us as content creators.
Well, they want the dopamine from getting the
but it also comes down to like what content kind of does well on YouTube. It's not the content that genuinely tells you how to become a better player. It's not the content that tells you, you know, what's the general rule of reinforcing or setting up site or how to leverage man advantage or something. It's how to do cheesy things that you know, gets you easy rounds, because a ranked game is not long enough. You know, you get 4 rounds and you've won. You can cheese your way to winning a lot of games, because obviously you're not playing against opponents who usually play against you, so ratting becomes an effective strategy. And it's a lot easier to sort of get good in that sort of quick game by snagging yourself a couple of rat rounds than it actually is to be good over a longer period of time, which for me, like, that's an argument why we should actually like maybe make ranked games a little bit longer, so we actually value adaptation to strategies and less emphasis on
I've advocated for that for a long time. I think that like the CSGO model of like what you play is what you see in the esports like tournaments that you see on Twitch. I think that model of League of Legends is the same thing. Like, this is the exact same version that the pros play. I think that's what Siege should have been doing ages ago. But you know,
ranked games are too quick, and you know, maybe you do like, you know, a spawn peak the first round, boom, you might have, you know, if you play it well, you've won that round off of that as a defender, and you know, maybe the next round you manage to rat in a corner and you're already up by 2-0. You're already, you know, the mental of the attackers is already you know, gonzo. They've lost 2 out of 3 attacks.
Even the whole like 4 to win the game thing. I mean, like I've played games where like we've been down and we've come back after the enemy had like 4 wins on the board. I've been in games where we've had 5 wins on the board and we throw.
Exactly.
You know, like it happens. It's not it's not set in stone.
It's so much of a mental thing, which again, like I would 100% advocate for getting a couple more ranked rounds in, just to sort of mitigate the value of being able to just rat yourself around, because you know, we might see that in competitive, but at the end of the day, there's so many rounds to sort of adapt into that it doesn't generate as much value as it does in like a ranked game, because in competitive that's only, you know, 1 out of 7, whereas like in a ranked game that's 1 out of 3 rounds that you've just, you know, magically got, not because you were necessarily better, but because, you know, maybe the attackers did a minor mistake, but that minor mistake has now turned into a third of why they're losing.
It also takes a lot of maps like kind of like passively out of the map pool. Like you don't want to attack first on theme park like ever. And I love theme park as a competitive map, but I enjoy it as well. I hate it in ranked. I can't.
It's not a good ranked map.
Theme is just it's atrocious. But competitive, put me on theme, baby. Let me go. I love
it's,
me.
It's one of the most fun maps to strat on. Like if you're in a 5-stack, theme is good times. It's good times. But yeah, you know, I hope that maybe, you know, we got to someone. There's probably someone sitting there like typing an angry YouTube comment right now. It's like, how dare you? How dare you try to explain how rank 2.0 works?
I played against champs. I'm not champ.
Yeah, but here's the thing. If you're not a champ and you don't even think you deserve to be champ and you're playing champs, losing against them is going to lower your hidden MMR eventually, where you're not going to play champs anymore. So there you go. Congrats. You're not champ anymore.
Chill. It's a video game. I get it.
Just chill. Play the game. Don't lose your head over it.
I had that little Dunning-Kruger thing, you know, like year 4, where I was like, wait, I suck? No. Like I had that too. It's okay.
I mean, that's the thing.
Like, just play the game every day for 4 hours a day for 2 more years, and then you'll get over it.
I mean, we also need to drop the whole main character thing. Some people are just not gonna be in a high rank, and that's completely fine. Not everyone can be LeBron, you know? Right? Like, some people are not gonna get the highest rank. And you know, everyone always has this sort of main character where like, I deserve to be higher. Maybe you don't. Sorry. Like, there are definitely, you know, moments where, you know, your teammates are ass and you deserve to win that game because you still played well. But at the end of the day, that's just how most 5v5 based games work. Some games you just cannot win, and that's kind of what we sign up for.
The story I always relate, I try to relate to my audience with is the Matt Stafford arc in American football, where he was playing on the Lions for years, and this guy would put up great numbers year after year after year, great numbers, but he just like they could never go anywhere because the environment he in just stunk. Like it was bad. And then the year that he got on a decent team that was like in it to win a Super Bowl, literally that year, just boom, Super Bowl ring. Now a couple years after, we don't have to talk about.
We don't talk about that. Nothing happened.
But like that's all it took. It's just a change of environment, and like maybe that is the case for you. Maybe your randoms aren't as good as you are. Maybe your friends just aren't in it the same way that you are.
Yeah,
and that's okay. You can find new people to play with. Just never talk to those guys ever again, because they obviously aren't on the grind set like you. I'm kidding. That was a joke. But seriously, like it's a very complex and I don't know. I saw this Facebook video. Yeah, go on.
Here's the thing: if you genuinely want like a more competitive way to play the game, no matter what game you're playing, you're not gonna play on ranked. Like genuinely.
Exactly. Yes.
You're going to do actual scrims. You're going to play in whatever it may be, face it leagues or something, because it's still not perfect, but it's a way more actual competitive experience. Ranked at the end of the day is still very much casual in a sense. Like, it has points next to it, but people are just, even pro players, like when they jump in ranked, they are treating it like just their fun little time off, and they're just maybe not playing as serious as they're supposed to be. I saw another video on Twitter the other day. People were sort of clowning a guy that was having a fun little time, that it was beating a couple of
I think everybody's
people overreacted like crazy on that one. But anyways, like pro players just jump in ranked to have fun, and that's how a lot of people do it. Not most people don't jump into ranked as a 5 stack with full on strats, comp level comps. It's still very much casual, and I think it's important to remember that. And there are better avenues to play competitive.
Yeah, I think there's a very clear difference between. I've come up with the term for this sort of like phenomenon of like weird loser gamers on the internet. I call them e-bros or like e-jocks, where it's just like they want to have like all the perks of like being a jock in high school without going to the gym, because they're like, I'm a cyber athlete. I play like cyber athletic sports, and it's like it's the same thing. And it's like a lot of these people fall into the same, they fall into the trap of like not understanding like the reasons why people are like invested in sports, and the reason that they like are invested in this sort of stuff, and why they play it is because of like pure like love and passion for the game, not for like bragging rights. And so like there's so many weird like offshoots of how like people, these kids like behave when it comes to like playing competitive shooters, where I think that they think that like, oh, this is like how, my favorite like football player behaves. And it's like, yeah, to a certain extent. Obviously, if you go on like a stage, like when we had NAL come back for a time there, everybody was talking about how like, why is everybody like getting in each other's face and like talking smack? This isn't my professional competitive environment. And it's like, dude, do you watch like sports? Do you watch like basketball or baseball? Like people chirp all the time. Chirp. Like there's a difference between like, obviously I think a lot of weirdos on the internet like take it way too far, and we'll say like, stuff over all chat or like online that I'm like, okay, if somebody said that at the NAL stage, I would expect somebody to get punched in the face. But the difference is like, there's a difference between saying some things that I shouldn't say during the podcast, that I've seen in ranked games of Rainbow Six Siege, and just talking smack after you get a round win on the NAL stage. Two completely different things. Yeah. And people don't know how to like find like the balance between those two things for some reason. I think that like people who don't, people who play video games who don't know much about sports or know much about the culture might see like these weirdos, these e-jocks, these e-bros as I call them, and think that represents the entire competitive scene for Siege, and it doesn't. Yeah. And it feels like it a lot of times. And there are situations where I'm like, okay, like, dude, gamer moment, like, what do you, but like at the end of the day, like it's for fun. right? If you're really invested in the game, if you're really invested in Siege, and you want to do better, and you want to grind, and you want to get there, you eventually kind of come to a point where you're like, okay, like I'm not like it's just a number, right? That's all it is. And yeah, I mean, like at a certain point, the people who know what they're worth and what their value is for a team know that, and they'll tune out the noise. Yeah. That's just how it is.
Word.
Yeah. There was a really good point about I'm sure you've seen my football tweeting very often, Keeney.
Oh yeah, it's always funny how like whenever you try to explain something, you just jump into football terms and like, yeah,
it's a really good analogy.
It makes sense. There's a lot I don't get it, but it makes sense.
I wish there was something like there's this other game where they kick around like a zebra colored ball. I forget the name of it. You could probably use as an analogy.
Oh yeah, football.
I think they call it soccer. I'm
pretty sure in America, everywhere else it's football.
No, but like I think there was a quarterback from my team who last year just absolutely just stunk it up. I mean, stunk it up, and it was one of those situations where it's like he had a really good arm and he was tall, but his game sense,
football arm,
it was like, dude, what is going on? And even I was in the position where he threw like 3 really bad picks, and I was like, you have got to be kidding me. I'm sitting here like looking at this, and I'm like, I'm pretty sure I could make a better decision in that kind of situation. Why is this dude getting paid like millions of dollars? And then he goes up, this like knee-jerk reaction from me, right? And he goes on the panel afterwards, and then the reporters are asking him, that was like a really rough time out there, and people were like booing you when you walk off the field. Is that like kind of screw with your mental? And he was just like, it's football. I get it. And I'm like, you know what, Carson Wentz, I don't want you anywhere near the starting position from my football team ever again. But like, if it's like good for you, that's a good mental. That's like a good mental to have. Like it's like, okay, it's like it's football. Yeah, just like whatever, dude. I'm getting paid $1 million to like be bad at football. Like who cares? I'm like, you know what? That great.
He got that bag. He got that bag. I mean,
he got a huge bag.
Chilling. Yeah, he's chilling.
He got a bigger bag than most people will ever get in their life. Like whatever. I think that's a good way to look at it. So yeah, I mean, if you want to play competitive Siege, then you're not going to let ranked 2.0 stop you. So
if you want to play, you want to get better, just play. There you go. That's the best tip I can give you. Just play. Like stop spending brain cells on giving a crap on whether or not rank 2.0 is good or not.
It's bad for you. I was there like 2 years ago. Don't do it.
Yeah, just play. Yeah. Enjoy it. It's more important. Like stop wasting your life just like complaining. Play the game. Like goddamn.
Tell gamers not to complain.
No, but it's like, dude, like in a couple of years, you're gonna be out of school. You're gonna have a normal job, maybe. Sure, we're lucky often we're doing this as a job, but most people aren't gonna be. Like they're gonna be out doing something else.
Sometimes I feel like I'm
they
lucky.
might not even play Siege in a couple of years. Maybe they moved on to another game, which is completely normal to do, and I encourage you to do if you're not enjoying a video game. Right? Yeah. Like, stop spending time being mad.
People demand they demand so much. It's weird.
Yeah.
I remember when people wanted to be good at video games. It's just weird.
Imagine. But anyways, rank 2.0. Yeah, I hope we helped. Last little topic.
We tried, Yubi. We tried.
We tried. Yeah. So you can PayPal us later. But anyways, let's talk Rengoku. Have you played it?
I played one game, and
same.
I still don't know like what half of the knives do, but that's just me being dumb. Not paying attention.
Yeah, I don't mean it as a jab by any means. Like I played one game, I got my pack, I had fun.
I had fun. Yeah, I'll probably play a couple more. I mean, that's Siege events, right? Like you play it for like it's really popular for like a day, and you spend like an hour or two, just kind of running around, having a good time, and then
some of them have potential for really good replayability, though. I think that's always my gripe with a lot of the events. Is like they could have good replayability, but they don't.
I don't know why. I just don't get how. I'm sure this is a question that we could tail end for another time, but like if you just go, or maybe they've done it already, and I'm an idiot, because like with custom games, I don't see why you can't just have like a big like list of custom games, and then just like hit a button, beep boop, and then just play it.
Okay, I can actually explain that for you.
Yeah. Okay.
So the reason why a lot of, and you know, people are gonna come and be like, oh, that's stupid, that doesn't make sense. But the reason why most events aren't available all the time, including one of the reasons why arcades weren't available all the times, is that once people get them, they, you know, maybe they play them once they have it, and then they just sit there and collect dust. So it's easier.
Kind of a deliberate.
Yeah, you wanna. Yeah, exactly. You want to concentrate it into a select period of time so that you actually get people in and playing it, because otherwise it just kind of sits there and collect dust. And you're like, sure, maybe some friend group jumps into a custom game at some point and they play it, but it would kill the actual sort of matchmaking aspect of these kinds of events. But I think there are better ways to solve it. They can always have like sort of like a tavern brawl type schedule where it's like a rotating thing. I think that's what they should have done with permanent arcades as well. Because I mean, I don't know if it's already happened or not, but I can predict the future. Permanent arcades is essentially going to be dead if it's not already.
I think Valorant does a good job of like having the like rotational system for like whatever kind of like, you know, fun, goofy kind of game mode is just sort of there on the side.
Because then you're still concentrated into a short burst of like, oh, that's available now. Let's play some. Whereas like if it's available permanently, it's like, yeah, maybe we'll play it someday.
But and then it never really happens. Real. Yeah, I mean, let's keep it real. Like people want to play Siege. They want to play, you know, Siege. They want to play 5v5 bomb. You know,
I dislike how all of
gadgetry and destruction, and
it's a shame that most events have moved over to a TDM. Like I get it, like TDM is nice because you know you don't spend half the round dead. But it's also like some events have done good with it. Like I think the Rainbow is Magic event was actually decent when it comes to TDM, but it's kind of getting overdone a bit, Yubi. Not every single event needs to be TDM. Rengoku is also fine. Doctor's Curse is good, even though it's not TDM. Don't make that TDM. I will be very disappointed in you. But yeah, it's...
I missed Mute Protocol, the first one.
Yes, that was really good. I really enjoyed that one.
One's
without the bugs,
my
of
favorite.
Course. Yeah, me too.
Still my favorite Siege event.
I would put it up high as well. I would probably put it 2. I personally am a big fan of Doctor's Curse, but easy 2 for me is Mute Protocol 1.0. Not counting the bugs, of course. But when it worked, it worked.
Yeah.
But it's I forgot where I was gonna say now.
Also, I love the it's always a good time, you know, to I think that skins, you know, people tend to like chalk them up to just kind of like a vanity thing, and it's not really like that big of a deal. But people like buying skins, you know, they like having, you know, to like
and you can buy them all with renown.
Yeah, and it's like there's some kind of appeal in having a really, you know, smart and fun kind of art direction centered around an event. And I think that the art team at Siege does a good job, especially in the more recent events that we've had. I loved the take that they had with the second Mute Protocol event, where it was like it's like a far away like human like space civilization or whatever, and then you still had like the robots that were like influenced by a lot of different stylistic concepts. Like you had like a lot of like retrofuturism there, like old school Art Deco kind of inspired Metropolis kind of vibe. I thought was really unique and interesting. I think that the art team, every once in a while, you know, you can people who do art, or at least like, you know, consume a lot of media, can start to see patterns of like, oh, okay, these guys are drawing inspiration from some like interesting things here. So I think the art team at Siege is a little bit more I would say sophisticated than people give them credit for. And it's always a lot of fun to see, you know, what they have to, you know, what interesting things they have to show for us with the events.
Okay, I agree. I kind of just wanted to end this sort of segment a little bit earlier. However, I wanted to do one little fun thought experiment before we sign off. So I was thinking, you know, I'll start, but I was thinking we could sort of like throw out our idea for a new event, a completely new event. So the way I would do it is I've kind of highlighted 3 things that I really enjoy in a siege event. I like it when the TTK is lower. So like when shotguns are used, you know, maybe you don't just die straight off of a headshot, like containment, or similar, or when there's not even guns involved at all, like Doctor's Curse, when it's melee based. And I also like when destruction and gadgets also play into the mix. I think those things are very vital to still make it feel like a good siege event. I think if you miss those 2 parts, it's like it's becoming something that, like, as a siege player, it's like, it's, I don't know, why am I even doing this? So what I would do for an event is I would do a reworked or sort of reskinned version of Emerald Plains, reskinned into like World of Warcraft medieval fantasy type beat, like an actual orc fortress type beat. And I would make it, if you ever play Team Fortress 2, the Groot Keep medieval mode.
Yeah.
So only gadgets that would make sense in that setting. So no futuristic type beats, and like melee weapons, or maybe like stuff like crossbows. So no one-shot type beats, but
Rainbow
like
One Siege.
Low TTK or melee stuff, basically, and just allow stuff like, you know, Amarus hooking the way up onto the, you know, the castle and such, and, you know, shield operators just smashing through.
So you're saying it would be a lot like a castle siege.
Exactly. I mean, there's that sort of segue for the marketing as well. It's like, you know, we're playing Siege 500 years back, and just I also thought about like a lot of the skins that they could do with that. They can keep it fantasy themed, so they can still allow, you know, operators like Tachanka to work in it. And, you know, they could give him like a, you know, a magma golem type skin where he's just actually throwing fireballs, or you know, actually having orcs and elves. Like Ying could be some type of sorceress just throwing like a light bomb type beat. And you know,
it's interesting.
There's so many, like, the potential for skins there is just like insane. Like, I'd love to see
What if you could do like a pantheon event, like a Greek god?
Yeah.
Or like something like you make all the characters like into like that perspective, like Smite it.
Yeah.
Give them all like a really overpowered ability and kind of like put them in an arena.
That would be really cool too.
Yeah.
Just,
like a
Clash as Zeus type beat. Just glowing eyes,
like,
thumbnail style. Yeah.
You just put them in like a gladiator pit. You could have like the crowd around them, and you could like do a bunch of skins based off of that. I don't know, it'd be kind of interesting.
That does remind me. Another thing that I sort of tossed out there. Imagine if we had Spleef in Siege.
I'm not sure what that is. So,
imagine there's 7 layers of grand larceny type destruction. Like as a tower. Then everyone has either like... everyone has basically shotguns, right?
Okay.
And everyone starts on the top layer. And then you try to like shotgun underneath their feet so that they fall down to the next layer. And once you fall down to the last layer, you die. Okay, so that's a thing that they have in Minecraft, where people basically run around and they try to mine underneath each other so they fall down. So that's something they could do as well, I think.
I had an idea. I remember when I was a kid, I came up with a Halo 3 like custom map and game mode idea where it was like exterminators, and it was on Sandbox in Halo 3. Everybody like picked out their loadout, I guess, so to speak, at like the start of the round, and they fell down this big like tube, this big chasm. That fell down because, you know, remember in like Sandbox you had like a little section in the center where you could like fall through, and so it was this big tube, and then you start at the bottom, and then you had to work your way up as the defenses and the whole like fort kind of got more complicated the way that you like worked up to each level, and the bugs had like different, you know, like stuff to use to combat the exterminators coming into the house. It was you know. Yeah. I never got on like the Bungie playlist or anything like that, but I will attest that it was a Greg and Friends community banger whenever it was pulled out. So yeah.
All right.
Whatever that's worth, you know, among like 17-year-olds in
hey,
you know,
who knows?
Saying.
Who knows? You know, hopefully we have some, you know, some dev watching this and it's like, yeah,
let them cook.
Let him cook. Let
Yeah,
him cook.
yeah, he's cooking. He's cooking.
Yeah. But yeah, I think now's somehow we actually ended up at a decent time. I think now's actually
2-hour mark.
Yeah. So I'll go back to this little screen right here, introduction, I guess, because technically this will still be that. But yeah, this has been the first episode. Hopefully, many more to come. Obviously, do end up commenting if you're gotten this far. Comment stuff, give us feedback. We read it. We are chronically reading comment type people. So yeah, do give us comments, give us ideas, give us things to talk about. Because yeah, we want to hear it. So and
I want to hear it to a point.
Yeah. Do use your brain when commenting, please. that helps.
Yeah.
That helps significantly.
Brain helps.
Yeah.
It's a new operator got leaked. Gadget is brain.
Most Siege players wouldn't figure out how to play him.
They have a pick rate of like 0.
The content creators would just be like, nah, he's useless. Don't play him.
Yeah.
But yeah, hope it was fun. Hope we didn't scare too many away with our our takes. And yeah, hopefully we can get to this more. I think our plan right now is to maybe keep it like bi-weekly.
Yeah. I think that's it's a good schedule.
Obviously, we might toss in an episode if there's like some
huge bit of news.
Breaking news: Ubisoft announces Tachanka becoming castrated. We'll talk about it. We'll see.
That was a mental flashbang. Sorry.
Yeah, obviously, like if some big news comes out, or some big event in the community comes out, we'll talk about it. But our goal is bi-weekly for at least the scheduled ones. And yeah, cool.
You and I do a pretty good job of corresponding. So yeah, I think if there's anything that's like particularly big, it's like, yeah, we can roll something out in a relatively short amount of time. So yeah.
Subscribe to the channel.
I had a good time. Yeah, this was fun.
Yeah.
And I hope people had a good time listening. Whether you were, cooking or cleaning the house or whatever you guys do when you're not playing Siege.
Do you think they do
chores? Actually, that's really good. That's a good point. I kind of set myself up for that one.
Yeah, what the hell?
I just moved into a gamer house and now I'm like, oh
yeah, you're it's going backwards.
Don't get me started. Anyway, I'm actually about to go downstairs and before I play more Siege.
Yeah.
Fix some of the
So Ranky after this? Ranky after this?
Sure. Yeah. Sure.
All right.
Just a little bit.
All right. Yeah, just one game.
Okay.
15-minute adventure.
That's what people always say, yeah.
All right, but we're writing off in 3, 2, 1. Thank you, everyone.